Why do we need to have a practice? And what is a practice? Well, we need a practice because we need to understand that we must tune into ourselves to create that greater experience of joy and inner fulfillment. So first of all, I would like for you to think about that you have an outer world and an inner world, or you can call it the external world and the internal world. Now, the external world is about our physical sensations, or what you more precisely could say, our perception through our sensations of what we perceive as the physical world. Simply talking about you can hear, you can see, you can smell, you can taste, and you can feel. That's the outer world. Now the inner world we call metaphysical, and it just really means like above physical, our senses. With our senses we experience what we perceive as the physical world, and with the metaphysical inner world we see what we perceive our thoughts and our feelings and our intuitions and so forth. Now, to connect to that inner world, we need to quiet the mind a little bit once in a while. So try to think about that voice in your head. How often is it talking to you? And is there an ongoing chatter going on within your mind? Well, that chatter is what we want to quiet down a little bit. You may ask yourself, what is the essence of being you really? And sometimes, mistakenly, we think that the essence of being is our body. But think about it for a second. There are various answers to how quickly this goes on, but most biologists will tell you that within a few years, your entire body has replaced itself. At a cell level, each cell is replaced at a certain, through a certain period of time. So, knowing this, obviously the body is not the essence of you, because you are the same you as you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Of course, you have collected wisdom and experience and so forth, which has changed your personality as such, maybe. But in essence, you are the same you. So it cannot be the body. It must be that inner self and that inner awareness, that knowing of being you, the inner consciousness, the perceiver of things, the perceiver of the perceived, the awareness of the aware. So to connect to that inner being, we need to quiet the mind a little bit once in a while, and we can do that in various ways. Some people like to do it through mindfulness practices. Other people like to meditate. You don't need to use these particular techniques. You can just sit down, close your eyes, and quiet and practice quieting your mind. I myself really love to walk in the forest, because the energy of the forest just provides that space where it's possible to remove thought. It's up to you how you do it. The important thing is that you have a practice, and you practice this, on a regular basis. The voice in your head can be quite chatting up a storm, if you will. And as I heard somebody say, now his name is Peter Sage, and I was quite inspired by this metaphor. And he says, well, you have this palette of colors as a painter, and this is your mind painting. And with this variation of colors, you can paint many pictures. I mean, beautiful masterpieces. But you will never get more colors onto the palette. So you have to do with what you have. If for some reason that you are a curious person and you like to have new thoughts, new ideas, and you want to expand your knowledge, then quieting your mind is a really great way. What Peter Sage explains to us also is a commonality among many of the great thinkers, such as Einstein or Nikola Tesla and so forth, is that they did not come up with great things while they were sitting in deep thought about coming up with new ideas for whichever creative projects they were working on. No, the thoughts and the creative insights, they came when they quieted their mind and tried to think of nothing, because then that space is made for new things to enter. And some people will call this various things in science or outside science. Some will say you are connecting to the infinite source. In quantum physics, they'll say you are connecting to the source field, and so forth. It doesn't really matter what we call it. The important thing is that you take out this time to connect with your inner being so you can calm your mind and feel your body and get out of your mind, so to speak. This way you can, get that lighter sense of being. And it's also, as I said, an opportunity for new thoughts and new creative things to enter your mind. So you actually get to paint with colors you were not able, that was not available to you priorly. Some will say that, well, isn't this a selfish kind of endeavor, going down this lane of trying to self-inquire all the time and getting to know yourself better? Well, actually quite the opposite, because when that you quiet your mind and you connect to your inner being, that also means that you as a person is going to be much more in tune with yourself. There's going to be much more harmony. You know what's important on the inside, and now you have that information available to, apply it in that what you perceive as the physical world. And that's what we also call authenticity, right? When what you think, feel, and say and do, there's a correspondence between those things. Now you are standing like this beautiful oak tree, and that no storm can turn it over because you rest really comfortably within your own skin. This also means that you don't need the outside, the external world's validation for being good enough. The only place from where a validation of yourself can come from is from the inner world. And that's why people that can be very wealthy and have a lot of stuff will not feel fulfilled or happy or not necessarily feel that, because it's not a hindrance as such, but it's not necessarily going to give that. You want a meaning beyond that paycheck. You want a meaning beyond, being having the opportunity for getting a paycheck, paying your bills, buying stuff. And if you got a big paycheck, then you can buy a lot of stuff which you essentially do not need at all. But why do people then buy all this stuff? Well, for many reasons, but some of the reasons are to get that validation from like seeing oneself through the eyes of others. And then one day perhaps they're gonna stand out in the driveway, look up and down the street, and it's gonna dawn that, oh my gosh, what is this theater that I have been part of my entire life? We live in similar houses, we have about the same cars sitting in the driveway, we're having the same furniture on the terrace, the same terrace heaters, our kids are walking up and down the street, they're wearing pretty much the same clothes, same brands, they have the same phones in their pockets, the same computers in their backpacks, and so forth. And this kind of sort of like awakening is taking place, and you're seeing it. You're seeing yourself and the entire context within which you are placed with new, fresh eyes. Now, for some people, this would be like a little glimpse of something into an experience where things suddenly look so much different. And this can go two ways, basically. I mean, for some people, it's gonna be so hurtful and involve so much suffering to realize being part of that theater for so many years that they will immediately try to pack it away, to deny it and suppress it, and then just move on like nothing happened. But for others, the experience is so full and so rich and so revealing that it's going to be impossible to hide it away and go on and pretend that it never happened. And then changes have to be made, obviously, to accommodate this new kind of experience and this new kind of awakening to what kind of illusion one has lived for the whole life. And in Europe, sometimes people go on the Camino, which is like a pilgrim's journey. And sometimes I jokingly say, well, we have to make the Camino like a 4-lane highway to accommodate all these people that realize they've been part of this ridiculous theater all their life, trying to, you know, get more stuff. And so because, and this is a thought that I didn't mention, like if you realize and you want to suppress this, what people often turn to is that you need to occupy yourself so you don't think about it. And you can do that in various ways, right? So you can start working a lot, you know, indulging in work, or you can just continue being occupied by watching social media. You can be on Netflix, or you are very occupied by planning the next vacation, because vacations are, you know, giving you that present moment. They're taking you into the present because you're watching something new. And when something that we have never seen before are in front of our eyesight, it's very difficult not to become present. So this is another way. I mean, sure, I mean, by all means, go on vacation also, but for some people it becomes very compulsory that this is more important than the everyday life. And then you're on to some hamster wheel that is unhealthy. Some people turn to drugs, some people turn to overeating, some will, you know, all kinds of ways of escaping from that truth that we know is just, you know, staring at us. And I say knowing because I'm talking about the people who have had a glimpse of it and then repressed it. But the trouble is that most people do not come to that revelation at all. And they go on in this life thinking that they are their body, they are that voice in the head, and it's a road to misery, basically, because we are not deciding our thoughts. So that means that you are letting your thoughts taking control of you, rather you being in control of thoughts. And that, of course, is a problem, because now there's no peace within you. And that's why essentially also why we need to have a practice to calm ourselves and compose ourselves and relax our mind and, you know, tune into that calmness and that stillness so peace and joy can enter, to make room for that. Because if there's no peace within you and no harmony within you, and you're living that authentic life where there's a correspondence between you, what you say, think, feel, and do, and communicate, and so forth. If that doesn't come from a place of peace, then of course you are not, promoting it in your outer world. You are not spreading peace. Like Thich Nhat Hanh so beautifully said, you have to be peace to do peace. You have to be peace to do peace. And that's why this inner journey is so important. And that's why you find that more and more people meditate, and or do mindfulness exercises, and people are awakening to the fact that nature is such an enormous help for tuning into yourself, because you are in that energy space that is it's like a great facilitator of tuning in to your own being. So with every cell in my body, every thought in my head, and every emotion, and my deeper sense of loving coming from my core consciousness, I invite you to start getting a practice so you too can experience that inner joy and that inner feeling of peace, and you can just, go about living your life without seeking the validation of the external world, knowing that you validate yourself and nobody else.